Hello again, everyone. Ed Dubrow, along with Tom Deeth and Lee Shaneth. We're getting set to bring you a history-making event on this beautiful day in Detroit. The 5 hydros you see here are in the finals, including 2 turbines that qualified at almost 140 miles an hour. We'll continue to whet your appetite for the upcoming final with highlights from qualifying heats run earlier today. In this heat, Steve Reynolds, who won the World Championship last year, and Jerry Hopp, a Vietnam veteran, along with the defending champion Jim Kropfeld and Todd Yarling, who was voted the most improved driver in '84. Steve Reynolds showed the strength of the turbine that he qualified at just under 138 miles an hour, and while you watch him fly to a comfortable win, I'll tell you about Jim Kropfeld. That's Kropfeld, and as I told you earlier, that's the hull that took him to the '84 championship. They have a new Miss Budweiser with an enclosed capsule, but it suffered damage winning at Syracuse. Jim's lucky to be here. Watch what happened when he tested the new one, and he tells us his thoughts at the time.
It was a little eerie feeling getting into the enclosed cockpit for the first time. Right away I said to myself, gosh, the decks blew off, and the thing that really bothered me, I think, was that we never did any testing on trying to get out of this cockpit under emergency conditions. I was about ready to go back with my helmet and get some water and throw on it. It wasn't a very big fire, but everybody was screaming and hollering, so I thought maybe they could see something I didn't see. And so I jumped in the water, and that was about the end of that.
The action continued in this heat. Chip Hanauer, Todd Yarling, Jim Kropfeld, and Scott Pierce, the current point leader for the World Championship. Remember, at the top of the show, Hanauer had a fire and didn't finish that heat. That made this one of the most important of his career. He had to win it to be in the final 5. Second wouldn't make it. At the start, it looked like the classic confrontation between Hanauer on the outside and Kropfeld on the inside. These two have built up a rivalry unequaled in the sport over the last 3 years. Chip turned up the boost. The power and design of the turbine proved to be too much for the grand old lady that had been competing since 1980 and had been brought out of retirement for this race. Hanauer took a big lead, turning lap 1 at 129 miles an hour. Didn't back off. Lap 2 was timed at an incredible record-breaking 131 miles an hour. Chip was literally flying by everyone. This is what has made him one of the new heroes of the waves. He had it in his pocket but never backed off, keeping it on the edge for the full 12.5 miles, and the crowd loved it. One old-timer summed up the performance this way: "I haven't seen them that excited since they jumped in the water to yell encouragement to Bill Muncy." The more than 500,000 spectators had barely caught their breath when Steve Reynolds and Jerry Hopp hooked up in a 2-boat match race. Reynolds, trying to conserve the turbine for the upcoming final, underestimated Hopp's ability to stay with the 711 turbine when the boost was not turned to full throttle. Hopp had already earned a spot in the final 2, but he sensed an opportunity to score an upset against the turbine and would not back off. Ironically, both drivers are Vietnam vets. Hopp campaigned last year as an independent. This year he has the Oh Boy Oberto sponsorship and wanted to give them a win. But Reynolds, nearest the screen, beat him to the line by the tip of a sponson. That brings us up to date, and we're moments away from the start of the granddaddy of them all, the Spirit of Detroit Regatta.